Well, good morning and welcome to Saturday's thought for the day. We're carrying on with our reading from Mark's Gospel, and today we're reading from Mark chapter 5, starting with verse 21 to verse 24, and then we're having a little skip on and going from verse 35 to 43. When Jesus had again crossed over by boat to the other side of the lake, a large crowd gathered around him while he was by the lake. Then one of the synagogue leaders, named Jairus, came, and when he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet. He pleaded earnestly with him, "My little daughter is dying. Please come and put your hands on her so that she will be healed and live." So Jesus went with him. We're going to skip on to verse 35 now. While Jesus was still speaking, some people came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader. "Your daughter is dead," they said. "Why bother the teacher anymore?" Overhearing what they said, Jesus told him, "Don't be afraid, just believe." He did not let anyone follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. And when they came to the home of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw a commotion with people crying and wailing. He went in and said to them, "Why all this commotion and wailing? The child is not dead, but asleep." And they laughed at him. After he put them all out, he took the child's father and mother and the disciples who were with him, and went to where the child was. He took her by the hand and said to her, "Talitha kum," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." Immediately the girl stood up and began to walk around. She was 12 years old. And at this they were completely astonished. He gave strict orders not to let anyone know about this and told them to give her something to eat. So this story about Jairus' daughter is a story of faith. But for me, it's also a story about fear, and about faith being stronger than fear. We've all experienced fear, and sometimes fear is a really good thing. So, for example, fear stops you putting your hand near a fire. Fear stops you from running into the traffic. And we use what we know about our fear makes us minimize the risks that we take and keeps us safe. So sometimes it's a good thing, but sometimes we just can't avoid it. And we've all had those moments where we're sitting in the lounge and out of the corner of our eye, a little black creature scuttles across the lounge floor unexpectedly. Lo and behold, a huge hairy spider has invaded our lounge, and for a few split seconds we are absolutely terrified, or at least I am. I mean, we all have different fears. You've already discovered that I'm not fond of spiders, or snakes for that matter, and I really don't like being in boats in rough seas, not because I'm a poor swimmer, but because I fear what might happen if the boat were to capsize. I wouldn't be frightened of being thrown clear of the boat, but I have a real intense fear of being trapped in something underwater, to the point that I can't even watch things like that on the television. I have to shut my eyes or leave the room. I find activities that you do at great height, like abseiling, for example, really, really terrifying. And I've had to do it a number of times over the years when I've taken children to PGL. The fear begins as I start to climb the abseiling tower and my legs start to become like jelly. By the time I get to the top of that tower, panic has properly set in. But actually I've done it enough times to have made myself a few rules that I know I have to follow, and these golden rules go something like this. I never look down. I never look down, because I know if I look down I will back out and I will never do it. So I get to the top of the tower and I make friends with the instructor, enough to make him want to keep me alive. I keep my eyes on him. I stare intently at him. I talk to him incessantly. He probably thinks I'm insane, but I talk to him to distract me from the fear that's below. And I talk to him because I know that my safety lies in his hands, and I keep my eyes on him. And all the time that I'm shuffling to the edge of the tower, I don't look down, I look at him. And I continuously tug on my rope and my harness to make sure that it's holding me safe. And I keep looking at him as I go right to the edge of the tower. And if you've ever abseiled, you know that you have to walk backwards until it's only your toes that are hanging onto the edge, and then keeping your legs really stiff, swing right out. And it's that moment when you swing right out that is most terrifying, and when you constantly pull on that rope to make sure that it's taut. Once I'm out, once I'm clear of the tower and I'm dangling on the rope and I know that that harness has got me, well, then I'm fine. I actually feel more safe than I was at the top of the tower. The anticipation was more frightening than the actual doing. The fear is past and I can abseil down quite happily. But I only did it because I kept my eyes on the instructor and I didn't look down. Well, that was 10 minutes of fear for me, but what about Jairus? I can imagine no greater fear than the fear that your child is going to die. The very thought of it makes me feel sick. And for Jairus, that death, potential death of his child was imminent, and there was nothing that he could do. If it were you or I, we would be frantic, desperate. There's only one reason that you would leave your dying daughter, and that would be because you truly believed that somebody could save her. And that is what he did. The story of Jairus and his daughter demonstrate a really strong faith on the part of a religious leader who was part of the religious establishment, who actually didn't really care very much for Jesus, felt threatened by him. And so he stood out amongst his fellow religious leaders in following Jesus and in having faith that Jesus could actually save his daughter. He believed that Jesus, just by touching his daughter, could heal her, and he sought him out determinedly. He knew that Jesus was his only hope. So it must have been really annoying to him when, on the way to back to his house, Jesus gets interrupted and is asked to heal another woman. We missed out that bit in the story, but he's actually asked to heal another lady on the way to Jairus' house. He must have been fraught and racked with fear as Jesus stopped to heal this woman when he knew that time was of the essence and his daughter was dying. So finally they arrive at Jairus' house, and Jairus gets the word that it's too late, that they've arrived too late, all is in vain, and Jairus' daughter has already died. Jesus' response is really clear, really, really clear. And it's, for me, the key message from this. Jesus says, don't be afraid, only believe. And I think for me, that's the key part. Don't be afraid, just believe. Your faith brought you to me in the first place. Keep your faith. I am with you. You don't need to be afraid. So how do we have that faith? How do we get that faith? Well, I think it's about where you look. And what we need to do is turn our eyes to our instructor. Turn our eyes to our instructor and our teacher. Keep your focus on where your help comes from the maker of heaven and earth, rather than on the fear itself. Fix your eyes upon Jesus. Don't look down. Song lyrics tend to stick in my head quite a lot, possibly more than scripture does. And these are the lyrics that came to mind for me today. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in his wonderful face, and the things of the earth will draw strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. And let that be our prayer today, that we turn our eyes upon Jesus and look full in his wonderful face. Have a good day, everybody. Bye.